Welcome back into another episode of The Dig. I'm Jessica Coody here today with Kelly Natter. Kelly, thanks for being with us again. How was it being home this weekend?
It's weird. It feels like season's been going on for so long, but to just kind of have our first home game in Devaney, it makes it feel like we haven't been home in like a month and we've been playing for 2 or 3, but it was good to be back in the Bob.
Okay, well, how about just overall, what were the big takeaways from the weekend? 2 more wins to add to the total.
Yeah, I think we got better as the weekend went on, and I think it's tough to improve. I mean, technically, obviously, from game to game, that's probably not going to happen, but I think our mentality and our mindset and the adjustments we needed to make after the first match going into the second match, our team responded really well, and to do those live and in a game setting is really impressive.
Danny had talked about after the match on Sunday that you guys set individual goals within a match. What does that do? How does that kind of help with the team staying kind of focused on each individual, I guess, step along the way?
I think it's something to kind of track and look at throughout the match, whereas when you're playing, you just kind of want to win points and stack points. But I think for us, I mean, we have such good athletes, such good talent, such a good team that we can get away with some stuff. If maybe we're not as dialed in on one specific skill, we can still be pretty good at it. But I think it's a way to really hold them accountable, especially on things that we've worked on in practice or things that weren't great the last match that we want to fix for the next match. It's something more specific and more detailed that they can really focus on, and we can see, did we do it or did we not? And we're even talking about it during matches. I know the coaches are, and I think the players are too. One of our goals was only 2 untouched kills in the whole match. And then once we got 3, everyone's like, oh, you could just see everyone was really into it. So I think it's just a way to keep the mental engagement high, especially when we have stuff that we're trying to work on.
And they're so competitive. It seemed like they'll latch on to that kind of challenge.
Anytime there's a challenge in our gym, whether it's a game or an actual serving challenge or a side out challenge, whatever it is, anything competitive, just it really elevates the level of everything we do.
How good was it to get some other players, some opportunities and some experience there over the weekend?
Really good. Danny has talked a lot about how we're going to need every single person on this team if we want to win in December. And I think it's really cool to see that we're talking about that, but we're also doing it. And I think it's really valuable for all of our team and all of our players to get that experience and build that confidence, shake out some nerves, and just feel when their name is called, because it will be called eventually, that they're ready for that moment.
How fun was it to see Manaya Obeche do what she did on Friday? It
Awesome.
seems like every time she's like making a jaw-dropping play.
Yeah, she's a really gifted athlete, and I think in our gym it's super competitive, and I know it's hard to go against Becca blocking and against Andy blocking, and that can be frustrating as a freshman coming in, but I think she just really enjoyed the moment and was excited that she got to start and play a whole match, and just really took it for what it was and just played loose and really free, which is really, really cool for a freshman to play that loose.
These freshmen are unreal.
Yeah, they definitely are. They have a lot of personality, and they all have different strengths and just what they bring to the team, and they're just all really good kids.
Okay, so that was Friday. Then in between Friday and Sunday, you guys were honored on the football field on Saturday. Coach Cook was back. How much fun was that?
It's awesome. I mean, to see Coach back, he's been back kind of announcing and popping into our office like, all right, who do we got? What do I need to know? Things like that. But to just kind of see him hang out in a social setting, and for him to be back, I know he probably misses it a lot more than he might ever say, but just to be back and to be honored with last year's team was really special.
You got a huge ovation too, which is not surprising from Husker Nation.
Yeah, it was, great crowd. Everyone was fired up. You could feel the energy. First game back in Memorial, so that was really good.
So, I know that Danny had talked about in her press conference too, and you mentioned it, the adjustments from Friday to Sunday. What were some of those things that you really challenged the team that they were able to improve upon on Sunday?
I think there was just a lack of discipline on our side of the net, and we try and scout and prep and be really good on the team we're playing, but we really want to be super crisp and sharp on our side. And I think against Wright State, there was some kills we left out there that shouldn't have been kills from them, and they did a good job really throwing the ball around and mixing their shots, and I think at times we were either out of position or not ready, or if we did make a play, we weren't able to transition as best as we could out of that. So I think we just really showed them the film and showed them some things where we were super undisciplined, like I said, and just they all acknowledged that it wasn't acceptable and then took that as a challenge for Sunday's match.
So going back to, the Sunday versus Kentucky, you guys made the switch at libero, and then Laney came back and was the libero again. How did you see her respond and handle that? And I guess just handle everything from Sunday to when you guys got back out and played another match on Friday?
I think the most impressive thing was just her response within the match. And you could see her really step up. She didn't pout or get really quiet. And I think we all know for Laney, if she were to be really quiet, that would definitely mean something's wrong. But I think her response within the match was the most impressive part of it all. And she just took her role, celebrated Olivia taking that spot, and then played as best as she could and helped our team win. So I think in the moment is almost even harder than coming back to practice and trying to gain that confidence again and shake off a bad performance to start. So I really am proud of her for that response within the game. But I think just when we got back to practice, it was, okay, what do I need to work on? What's my mentality? And she even came into my office for film and was like, I hope Wright State serves me every ball. So to hear that mentality is really good.
So what goes into, just in improving in a season in the passing area of it? Because we all know, like, when Kills, she's not letting them touch the floor, but the passing part of it, how does that continue to improve, I guess, when you're in a season?
Yeah, we do passing every single day. It looks different every day, but we'll do some stations with coaches initiating the ball. We'll have our players serving off boxes, and then we'll go live. So we do a lot of different variations of passing, and I think that's really helpful because we can train on things that are specific to each person even, and not just a general theme for the team. You can really help them with one extra skill. And I think a big thing too is them coming in early or staying after if they want. We like to encourage if they have anything they want to work on, we're always available. And so I think that's a big thing. And I know the littles and Laney specifically have been in there a lot, at least in the preseason. We've kind of tapered off a little bit, but that's always an option. But I think the biggest thing is our serving's getting better, and you hope you see that improve. So that makes our passers have to improve as well.
What's the difference between when you're, and again, this will be a silly question, but I ask about one of those every podcast, but what's the difference between when you've got a serve and you're passing from a serve to when you've got like a 120 mile an hour kill coming at you and you're passing that?
Yeah, I think there's some similarities and differences, obviously. A big thing for passing is just tracking the ball really early. So knowing where the ball's going. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but the point of a float serve is to make the ball move, whether it's side to side or short and deep. So just being able to recognize that and seeing that is definitely the biggest key right from the start. And then technique, it's a lot different. With defense, you just really want to be right in the right spot and hope the ball comes right to you. If it doesn't, make a good move and push forward. But passing is honestly very similar, where you want to still go forward and attack the ball. So as much as the ball is coming at you, you want to go out and get it, because we don't want to be jammed up in our body or letting the ball play us. We want to play the ball out in front. So really similar in those kind of forward moments or movements, but I think passing even more so is tracking where the ball's going and making sure I have good technique no matter where that ball ends up.
Can it sometimes be harder, like to track a serve that is kind of crazy and wacky, like
sure.
Olivia's serve versus, I guess an Andy kill sometimes? Like, can it be like equally as challenging?
I think it's more because defensively, there's a lot of reading involved, but it's more so reading the situation than necessarily where the ball's going. So if our middle is closing the block and there's four hands in front of that attacker, then the defenders have to line up a little bit differently. If our middles don't close or if the block's too far, they have to adjust from their spot. So it's more so adjusting to be in the right spot on defense, and then the ball should, in theory, come right to you. Whereas passing, it's just the ball. It's just a server and a ball, and you have no clue where it's going sometimes. So I think there's less information when it comes to passing, whereas defense, there's a lot happening in front of you that you can kind of see and anticipate. So passing a serve is a little bit tougher, in my opinion.
Wow. So speaking of serving, we've seen Andy Jackson back there now. Rebekah Allick's getting in on the action.
Yeah, Becca was chomping at the bit to serve, asking for extra reps always, and she's always wanted to serve. So that it was really cool to see her have her name called and go up and perform. But I think those guys, they just have an advantage being so tall. They can get a really good angle on the serves where it's dropping down, whereas some of the littles and shorter people, they have to kind of navigate the net a little bit more, so they don't have that same trajectory. But it's always fun when you get the middles back there, and Becca loves defense too. So she dug quite a few balls when she was back there. I think she's like, if I dig the ball, I get to go serve again. So she loves that mentality.
Oh, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you about Bergen Reilly and being a former setter yourself, and then just seeing her, how she's evolved. But when I was watching the Kentucky match, the commentators on ESPN were talking about when setters serve the middles, what does it take? You have to have guts. Why is that? Why is it, when you are involving the middles often, like what Nebraska's doing this year especially, why is it such a gutsy thing to do?
I think setting the middle, it's really easy on a perfect pass, but anyone who watches volleyball can tell that there's not perfect passes all that often. We're lucky we have some really great passers and some outsides who pass the ball really well, so we're in system a lot more compared to some other teams. But I think it's gutsy because when you're not in those perfect pass situations, can you still get the middles involved? And sometimes they might have to call a different play based off of what the setter called in serve receive. Or transition, the middles kind of get to call whatever they want because they're just trying to bang, bang, get up anywhere. So you kind of have to have that relationship and that feel of where they're at. But I think the gutsy part comes from taking the risk the further you move off the net or the further you move away from the center of the court, because it's easier to set other players in those situations and maybe safer because it's a higher ball. But when setters are on the move and they're not right in the center of the court, if they can find the middle, it makes it really tough to defend.
Fascinating. And with Bergen especially, and the way that you guys have so many people that can get involved and spreading it around, what's the challenge of that, of making sure that you are spreading it around and having that chemistry with multiple players?
I think it's nice because there's a great relationship with everyone. And like you said, everyone is more than capable to have the most amount of attempts on our team on any given night. I think it's a lot of just kind of having that little balance in your head of who am I setting more often? Who am I more comfortable with? Who do I know I can go to when I need a kill? There's a lot of things to balance. And I think you have to kind of fight those urges to do what's comfortable at times. But with our team and just the core group that's been together for their third year now, I think it's really easy to trust every single person. And I think just adding in new people and how we mix up teams at practice, it only helps build that relationship. But for example, one of our goals in our last match versus Cal was to have everyone have super similar attempts. And to be honest, I didn't look back at it, but you can just kind of tell by feeling, was it super Harper Murray focused and she had 20 attempts, and then let's say Andy only had 2 or 3. I don't think that happens very often on our team because the relationships and the chemistry with everyone is so good.
Because I would imagine it could be easy. I mean, same thing with like a quarterback. You get your one guy that, hey, I want to go to him, but it seems like she's really focusing on getting a bunch of different people involved.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities to find new people because if you think about it, Harper's going to have a lot of attempts and Taylor's going to have a lot of attempts because we are out of system or not in perfect system so often. So when you do have those perfect passes or those situations where you feel like you could set anyone, you kind of want to go away from those guys at times because you know so much of the game is going to find them anyway. Whether it's out of system or a random scramble play, someone has to bump set a ball, those guys are going to get a lot of balls. So I think it's knowing when I do feel good and I can set someone else, really emphasizing that and making that a habit so that not one person on our team gets so many attempts.
I know the goal is to always have a perfect pass, but that's obviously not reality. So is there like a benchmark that you think about that you try to hit of, okay, how many times we make a perfect pass so that we can get into our offense like we want to?
Yeah, so we have a grading scale, and it's a 4-point scale. So for our liberos, we want them up close to a 3, and outsides at a 2.7 would be phenomenal. So it's basically, in simple terms, how many options do you have to set is the grade of the pass. So if you get aced, it's a 0. If you can only set bump set left side, it's a 1. If you can go left or right, 2. You could set anywhere 3. If it's an absolute dead perfect pass, it's a 4. So we go off of that scale, but we've kind of shifted less from how many perfect passes do you have to how often are you in system. So that it works with our setters where if they can find the middle and in some less than ideal situations, it obviously makes the passers look better. It makes their job feel lighter that they don't have to pass this absolutely perfect ball. So we've shifted more from, obviously our grading scale and our number is still important, but we're looking even more now at the in-system percentage, and we want that pretty high, 60, 70 up there.
Terea Sigler seems to be a really good passer already as a freshman. Is that something that most freshmen you have to grow into?
For sure. I think it's one of the most mental skills. I mean, besides serving, it's just you and the ball back there, but passing for sure is very mental, especially as a freshman, expecting people to serve you and knowing that, especially for T, she's in the back row to pass and play defense and hit some back row balls. So if one of those isn't going great, then that's a big chunk of her game. So to see a freshman come in and just really own that role and really not look phased at all when people do target her, or if she has a couple of bad passes back to back, just to really focus on the next one. It's hard for anyone, no matter what age you are, if you're a defending national champion or an All-American, any of that. It's always hard to bounce back from mistakes. But the way she kind of gets a little bit like, okay, I know I can make that, but focus on the next one is really cool.
And then Danny had talked about too, just her understanding that she's got to be more confident or gain more confidence and be better even when she's on the front row too. How does that look too from someone that, she is pretty solid on the back row, but growing your game on the front row too?
Mm-hmm. In practice, she's through the front row as much as all the other outsides. It's not like she's only playing back row, so she's getting a lot of reps there, definitely making a lot of improvements. I think those times where she does stay in the front row, it's kind of, and she has never said this, but you could assume it's like, okay, this is my shot, and now I'm in the front row and there's a little bit more pressure and you just really want to perform. And I think there's some of that for anyone who has to go through that. And like we talked about, a freshman, it's even harder. But I think she's doing so well in practice and making such big strides, and she just hits the ball so hard, and it's honestly really impressive. So now it's just, okay, trusting all of that practice work when she does end up going through the front row in games.
Another one of those incredible freshmen. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about this weekend. Obviously, you got Utah and Grand Canyon, but the first back-to-back, right? So what goes into that, and how much more of a challenge is that to get a team prepared? Because, you're going to have more back-to-backs, so hopefully not many of them, but it's a different kind of challenge, right?
Mm-hmm. So just practice-wise, last week we wanted to go really hard because we played Friday and Sunday, so there was a little bit more time off. This week's more interesting because we had yesterday off, so we only have 3 days to get prepared to play a match, and then, like you said, we played the next night. So I think our practices will be a little bit more intentional this week. Like, we're focusing on a couple of things and we're doing those really well. We're not going to practice for 2.5 hours probably every single day. So I think it's managing that load, knowing that you're not going to have a more recovery day between the matches, and looking forward to our schedule when we're going to have to do that back to back with really big teams. I think it's great prep for that, and for them to understand how they need to fuel and recover and do all of those things, because back to back is a big beast, especially when things go 5 or you don't know what time you play. It's an 8 p.m. and then you're at 6 the next day. You never know what cards are going to be dealt to you. So our job as coaches is to manage that load, and then the players have to be on top of their recovery, nutrition, and those things.
Okay, so what are the keys going into this weekend? Because does it change the prep too, being that you don't have the day in between?
A little bit, yeah. We kind of, we typically start with the team that we play second and then start there. And then we, on Wednesday or Thursday, get to the team that we play first in most weeks. But sometimes there's teams that don't really have weird wrinkles or anything that we really need to prepare for. So I think this week we're just really going to focus on our side still and those things that we need to get better at. But we were talking about Utah today. They bomb some serves and they really go for it from the service line. So we've already kind of adjusted our practice plan to have some more serving and passing challenges and kind of work through that. But it's more so just what did we learn from last week? What do we need to get better at? And also what are the teams we're playing this weekend kind of doing? So we've started with some bombing serves today is what we're going to see.
Who's responsible for that? Who's the one that's bombing the serves back there to get the team prepped?
That's a good question. We have some GAs who can initiate balls, and sometimes I know Jalen gets in there, Brennan gets in there too. I try every now and then, but after I miss 2, I'm like, I can't. I'm out of here. So I think our coaching staff will get back there, and maybe we'll tell our girls, we got to amp up our serving. Let's see everyone else's bombs.
Because that's how you prep for, right? Is seeing it in practice. So awesome. Well, great stuff. Thank you for being here, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Kelly Natter with us here on The Dig. As always, The Dig is powered by Emeritus. Emeritus, proud to power this podcast and all of Husker women's sports. Thanks for listening and watching. And as always, make sure you subscribe and like wherever you listen to never miss an episode right here on the Huskers Radio Network podcast.